So at the time, you're already riding for G Unit, but then when you hear him say your name, then you're like, oh, like you trying to take it there.
It's like he tagged me in because with my personal involvement in all the beef and drama, 50 always advised me to not get involved. The only time we had this conversation directly was in regards to Game. However, if you recall at that time, his whole campaign to the media, which was similar to his campaign to me personally, was Game's lack of loyalty.
Right.
Game didn't necessarily turn on him and start dissing him, but he was just showing familiarity or friendliness with people that 50 didn't appreciate. So the fact that I never had to ask 50 to be around him, he just invited me, and this was the energy he was pushing out to the world. I was already aware that he appreciated my artistry because he invited me to be a member, just based on seeing what I did a cappella as an artist. So from that point on, everything he expressed, loyalty was key. That's just embedded in my DNA. So I figured, be loyal to the cause, because this is all he was going around expressing that he was dissatisfied in Doja with. He already expressed an appreciation for what I brought to the table as an artist. I had that locked. The only thing I heard him articulate outside of that is a displeasure in loyalty. Right. That's something that just happened to be an expertise of mine as well. So I figured I had it all locked in. But, somewhere, somehow, even though I was an artist that caused him to react like no artist ever before or since, meaning offer and execute a deal with me based upon a cappella execution of my lyrics upon a happenstance meeting. That's the only time he's ever experienced that. You see, he never recalls that experience. He never talks about how we met, what caused him to be interested. He never goes into any of that, because then he would have to open the magic of the moment it was to meet me. However, after that, without me ever doing anything outside of meeting the requirements requested on behalf of him as a label, we ceased to do business together. There was never even a moment where he announced to me that we had ceased to doing business. It was extremely cowardly, even in the way he chose to go about ceasing doing business. It got to a point where, that's why I shout out Mac 10 so heavy. I had created such a buzz by being affiliated with him in general, and being a hustler with my career myself, by landing myself on Cold Case alongside Michael B. Jordan as a co-star on the biggest network on television, CBS, as well as starring in a film entitled Parole alongside Master P and Ernest Thomas, who is Raj on What's Happening. I also had starred alongside Wood Harris in an episode of Numbers on NBC. I had an episode where I starred with the lead character on Weeds on the Showtime hit show, all in this period of time where I'm supposed to be developing myself as an artist to be prioritized by a label. These are the things that I brought to the table. Alongside, out of nowhere, Mac 10 hit me up because we had the same lawyer, Robert Lieberman, is how he got my number, Bob Lieberman. Shout out to Bob Lieberman. But he suggested to me, when 50 had me on the back burner, when it wasn't obvious to the whole world that he had no intentions on fulfilling his requirements to me, Mac 10 hit me up and said, "Hey, I love that record, Beautiful." He said, "What they doing with you over there?" He said, "Won't you tell 50 to just leave the G Unit stamp on it and allow me and Brian Turner, my business partner, to put it out." So for those that need a translation of what happened, not only everything else that I brought to the table that I just discussed, I shot the Beautiful World video and recorded the record on my own. Didn't get the producer from G Unit, no help with 50 on the hook. And one day 50 called me and said, "Hey, yo, B, you got a joint, B. It looked like you spent $250,000 on that video," talking about the Beautiful World video. That's something also I delivered to the label. He had a whole promotional program idea that he had to verbalize to me that he intended to move forward with that he never followed up on. But outside of that, he never pushed a button on anything that would be considered as promoting or pushing me as an artist. I was only benefiting from being affiliated with him as an overall artist. So for the situation that a lot of people like to describe as me fumbling, I like to describe as me being fumbled. If you look at my moment affiliated with his label, and then you look at artists after me or in times that were parallel to mine, and you look at what he was capable of doing for or with them, the responsibility of the lack of success is kind of obviously not mine versus his. Even when he speaks toward the subject, he likes to mention OT Genesis. And he says, I had a deal with OT Genesis. It didn't work out. And then next thing you know, according to 50 Cent, here comes In Love with the Coco. And he says their relationship is healthy based on that's the way it transpired. Well, even with that statement, he is acknowledging that even under his affiliation, OT Genesis was not able to be successful. And not until he affiliated himself with another situation outside of him did he experience the success that has caused him to be a household name. And to me, it should be more obvious to the average viewer or listener or audience member that I experienced a similar situation.
Yeah, because I feel like that lack of success with G Unit, right? Even though it's not your fault because you did put in the work, you just weren't given the chance to really release the music. Now that adds on to the narrative that people say about you. Oh, he was just signed for security. He was 50 security on the West Coast because they had beef with Game and them and stuff, right? And,
That's so
and that's the
flattering.
same narrative that Joe pushed when he was on the Smack DVD. Saying who they signed out there, Spider Moke, right?
That is so flattering if you are unaware of the budget that 50 Cent actually had allocated towards security. Politics, positioning, influence, affiliation. He may have been fully aware of what I brought to the table, and he was playing chess, positioning himself as well as he could. So those may have been qualities as he became more aware of whom I was that he appreciated. However, my grabbing 50 Cent's attention was based upon an unscheduled, unplanned encounter where I chose to interrupt him having a very deep conversation about some very deep things just by a cappella rapping. And he's at the conclusion of me doing so, he offered me a deal. That's just the raw basic. That's what happened.